Clean energy maturity, a blueprint for buyers. So at PowerFlex, we're a little different than your standard EV charging company. In fact, we're not an EV charging company. I like to tell people we're an energy management company that does EV charging, that does solar and storage. So depending on who you are, from our customer base, you might think of us as a solar installer. You might think of us as a stationary battery installer. You might think of us as a microgrid control company. But really, we're after on-site energy management at a facility or campus level. And so what we're after in the long run is protection from the challenges and the disruption that are hitting the electrical grid. Not only that, but we're after protection from the tremendous cost implications of rising energy prices at the retail level across the country. So since 2020 or so, retail energy prices, I'm sure you all in the real estate world know, have been rising pretty steadily across all those markets. So our vision is to build this platform which allows you to have bidirectional EV charging, which allows you to have on-site generation in the form of solar, allows you to have resiliency from disruptions in the grid, allows you to charge cars and or discharge cars. And so that's what it also looks like for the most sophisticated energy buyers in the world. So most sophisticated energy buyers in the world, who they look like, primarily like big box retailers. You think the two biggest retailers in the world, and their energy buying sophistication is off the charts. They're more sophisticated than some of the utilities in some cases. So how do we get to here? So the title of this is like about clean energy. We're not really that interested in the clean energy piece. I like to tell people that I'm in clean tech. I grew up in Boulder, Colorado. I was an Eagle Scout. I spent most of my life, hiking and skiing and climbing and all those sort of things. So I grew up inherently caring about the environment, and I consider myself a clean tech entrepreneur. I'm even sort of wearing the tech bro uniform today, just for effect. But really, I'm a hippie, and so in the essence of being an Eagle Scout, we've created these nice little merit badges for our customers, which sort of we award to you as you get along the journey of being a clean energy buyer. Just kidding, there are no actual merit badges. So what do you start? You start here at Clean Energy Explorer. And what does this look like? You might have some newly emerging ESG sustainability goals coming from your corporation. You might have some financial implications. You might be looking to combat rising energy prices. You might have some funding sources or some revenue incentives and the sort of things that are driving you towards making decisions in the clean energy market. And so really thinking about, what do I do next? So what does that look like? These really cool animations. So it looks like, oh, I'm thinking about EV charging. I'm thinking about storage. I'm thinking about solar. I don't know where to start. I don't know who to call. I don't know how to ask the right questions. I don't know what incentives are out there. This is actually where most people are. If you look at like a map of the US, there's probably 10 markets that are really, really starting to grow and starting to be sophisticated in this. Most of the US is still trying to figure it out. And so when we, come on, then get to the clean energy adopter, this is somebody who has made the decision to actually buy something. So this is somebody that has navigated through the myriad of companies that are out there, right? It's like I can name 20 or 25 different EV charging companies off the top of my head, but you're like, okay, I made a decision. I'm going to buy solar. I'm going to buy storage. I'm going to buy an EV charger. I'm going to do one of those things, and I'm going to install it on my facility. So you're starting to get to a place where you're starting to understand more of the economic viability. You're starting to look at, like, how do I do the reporting? How do I charge my tenants? How do I get reimbursed? Is this a revenue piece? Is this a passive amenity? What does this look like in the context of my real estate properties? And so you start to think about how that looks from a whole bigger facility standpoint, and you get ready to make the next move. And so that next move is the optimizer. And so this is where it starts to get really fun. This is where I get excited. And this is where our software platform really starts to shine. So most of our customers come to us and they say, I want to put in 5 EV chargers. And we say, okay, how many EV drivers do you have? And they say 5. So I need 5 EV chargers. You're like, okay, you put in 5 EV chargers for your tenants or your employees or your customers. And the next thing you know, you're going to have 20, you're going to have 25. So what does the power constraints at your facility look like? What do the adoptions? What do the charge curves look like? What are the pricing? Is power really expensive? What's the time of use and the time of day piece? What does that really look like for you? So now you're starting to get bigger and bigger on our cool spider web here, right? So you're looking at more of the funding and financial. You're looking at the cultural aspects, but you're also taking into account, how do I future-proof those investments? How do I grow into this piece where I can optimize power purchases and energy prices? So in San Diego, we have 63 cents or something a kilowatt hour power prices at the peak. I was talking to somebody today. Most of Nevada is 18 cents, right? And so depending on your geography, depending on those time of use pieces, you want to optimize what you're buying where and how you're installing it. And so this is where PowerFlex really starts to shine. So we can say, we take all of those energy assets that you might be buying. You've bought solar and you're adding EV chargers. I need reimbursement from this tenant. I need to limit the power charging between 4 and 9 p.m. I need to make this a revenue source. I need to scale this across 3 or 4 facilities. So now you're starting to think of it like campuses, and you're starting to look at what happens on a broader basis amongst your portfolio, and not just at a single site and not just a single energy buyer. And then clean energy leader. So the leader piece here is like a little bit of a misnomer. I think what it really means is that you're leading within your organization or your vertical. And so from a clean energy leader, what you are thinking about is, how do I optimize all of my facilities? How do I optimize all of my properties? How do I buy things at scale? How do I leverage all of the reporting and all of the incentives? Now you're starting to think about like multiple technologies on multiple facilities. You're starting to think about things like microgrid resiliency, right? So say you have a property that has, frequent grid interruptions. Say you're a winery and you have a significant power draw during the middle of the grape crush. Power goes out from a fire or some sort of public safety shutoff. You've lost your entire revenue for the entire year. So you're starting to think about resiliency plays. You're starting to think about optimization across different facilities at this point. And so you're really starting to fill out the spider web, right? So the technology play of that, the resiliency, what's my strategy? How does that affect the funding and the financial piece of that? Now you're starting to talk about really big CapEx investments, but you're also starting to talk about really good revenue ROI on the back end. Talking about hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in ROI after a couple of years. Yeah, the CapEx expenditure is high up front, but when you start to get to this level, this clean energy leader position, you actually start to think about, oh, this is now a significant revenue source or significant savings over what we would have been paying across the board. I was giving a demo today and pulled up one of our sites. It's been running for 4 or 5 years. It had $1.6 million in energy savings across this commercial industrial facility. It has everything. It has a big solar array. They sell back into the grid. It has a battery. It has 60 or 70 EV chargers. But yeah, $1.6 million ROI in 4 to 5 years. And so as it grows, we start to think about, okay, what are the other types of programs, and what are the other ways that I can monetize this? Now that I'm this leader, now that I understand how to co-optimize, I have multiple types of technology. Now where do I go? And that is where you end up in Clean Energy Innovator. There's actually not that many of these in the world. Like I said before, think about your big box retailers. They have a really holistic view. And now they've gotten into really interesting things where they're in demand response programs. So the utilities send signals to your facility and say, if you can use this power or like a lower your power output or your energy consumption over this time to this time, we're going to give you this giant incentive because of the savings that we get on the grid and where we can sell that power elsewhere at much higher rates. You started to think about virtual power plants. So the ability to optimize where the supply is coming from at those facilities and having that on-site generation and being able to leverage that as a host of portfolio feeding into the larger grid and getting those incentives back from the utilities. You're starting to think about V2X charging. So I use V2X. A lot of people use vehicle to grid. Really, the key thing here is bidirectional. So you have tenants or you have customers with like a host of EVs, and all those are just giant batteries on wheels, right? And so power sometimes from the grid is really cheap, and then sometimes power is really expensive. And so if you can utilize all of those batteries to fill them up when it's really cheap, and then put it back into your facility when it's really expensive instead of paying from the grid, combining that with solar storage, VPP style optimization, demand response programs, you can really game the system. And some of those customers target their competitors, really understand how to game the system and pay much, much lower average utility rates than anybody else because they understand this. So that's what we call sophisticated energy management at scale. And this is the PowerFlex vision. This is what we're after. This is why we're not an EV charging company and why we're an energy management company, right? There are a couple other competitors out there that do really good work. Come find me after, I'll tell you who they are. So what are those stages and what are the solutions? So Explorer. This is the hardest piece, right? This is where you're looking out there and you see those 20 different EV charging companies, you see those 17 different solar companies. You're looking at the price of a battery and you're like, that is insane. How am I ever going to pay that? What are the, who do I go talk to, right? And so this is the hardest piece, like anything. The hardest thing is to get started. So, there's a ton of educational resources and self-help tools out there. We have some on our website. You can call us. We'll point you to third-party ones. It doesn't have to be the PowerFlex ones. We'll tell you what incentives. Talked to a guy today from Colorado. Had no idea about the Xcel Energy incentives. Basically free EV charging for everybody in Colorado for a while. Pays for the equipment, pays for the installation, pays for everything, even operation for 5 years. It's crazy. So that's the hardest point, right? Get started, get off the bench and get in the game. Adopter. This is where almost everybody that makes a purchase gets stuck, right? So you have siloed energy assets, you have on-site solar generation, you have some EV chargers, you're not optimizing them. It's not connected. You bought this software program for this battery and this software program for these EV chargers. They don't talk to each other. They're not integrated and you're not getting co-optimized. You have like very little insight into how that's affecting your facility. And it's just an asset that may or may not have an ROI. You're not using it as revenue generation. You're not leveraging those assets to their fullest extent. Again, solutions, give us a call. We'll point you to third-party resources, not just the PowerFlex ones. There's a lot of good information out there to get you off of this adopter merit badge. Optimizer. Like I said, this is where stuff gets really exciting. This is where, the clean energy innovator, the end piece, the virtual power plant vision, the broad vision of intelligent on-site energy solutions that PowerFlex has. Like, it's an awesome goal. It's a really exciting thing. Like, I'll keep working towards it for the rest of my career. But the thing that really excites me is this optimizer level, right? It's like, this is where we really start to help customers, to help landlords, to help property owners, to help our customers, like, turn their energy assets into like powerful revenue generating assets. And, like I said, it's not just about the clean energy piece. It's about, combating rising energy prices. It's about instability in the grid. I learned today that the bulk of the grid assets in the US were installed in the 70s and 80s. most of them before 1990. 1990 doesn't seem that long ago to me, like I remember 1990. But it turns out that it was like something like 40 years ago. So the youngest grid assets in the US are 40 years old. That's like marginally scary to think about, right? And so, from a real estate perspective, you're all real estate professionals of some level here. Think about what it takes to build new transmission and new grid assets. Like you have to get the right of way, you have to acquire the land, you have the environmental permits, the construction permits, all those pieces, right? So if you can generate that on site and you can combat what the whole rest of the world is fighting on the challenges to the grid, um, you know, data centers being driven by rapid advances in AI are sucking up all of the transmission power before it ever gets to the urban areas, or ever gets to the cities, which is going to drive urban energy prices through the roof because the demand is shorter, lower transmission costs to those facilities than it is to the rest of the demand centers. So if you can optimize your energy usage and your on-site generation at your site, this is how you win the energy game in the next 10 years. And then the step from optimizer to leader to innovator is a really natural progression, right? It's more about size and scale and portfolio than it is about knowledge. Getting from adopter to optimizer, that's the hard step. Like this is where you start to say, okay, how do I leverage these assets? Getting here is just like the natural progression of the next thing. What's the next thing that I can do? Now that I know that I have these amazing assets that perform, how do I make it better? How do I do more? How do I increase that ROI? And then, you know, virtual power plant integration, some of these things are forward looking in terms of the markets. There really isn't a market outside of a couple places in the world, Australia being one of them, for virtual power plants, but it's coming. And as soon as you have 100 megawatts of dispatchable control, power traders are going to come looking for that power because of that price challenge within those urban markets and within the edge of the power grid. And so we can help. QR code here, you can scan it, map your path to energy independence, give us a ring, give me a ring. Happy to help. Thanks much.